Alrighty then. Now, I'm using a new version of OBS Studio, so hopefully everything's going to work. It's really cool. It actually shows me the chat bar for YouTube on the right side of the screen. In fact, I might even be able to show you this. Yeah, it kind of goes a little bit meta, but they've now added this chat bar at the side of the screen. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to have a play with that. Hopefully it'll all work okay. And yeah, so let's dive in. So today I want to work on something a little bit different. I want to we're going to keep building the timer app, but I want to play with some concepts I've been thinking about with trying to make my components as agnostic to models as possible. Basically, I want them to be entirely model agnostic, and I'm going to explore how we might actually do that. So this might fall into a heap, but I think it'll work out well because I've already worked it out in my head, and I'm hoping that in this live stream, it's going to come out right in the real world. All right, so the place we left off is that if we jump into pages here in our index page, user dashboard is probably where we want to go. Yeah, so we were ready to basically reformat all of this. It's turned into a massive file, and we want to reformat a lot of it into its own components. One thing that I want to try doing is making it so that my forms have no knowledge of my models. So we might actually try and tackle these things one at a time. Let's look at the Pomodoro category form. And if I look in here, it looks like this actually doesn't have any knowledge of my models, which is exactly what we're looking for. So notice that we're admitting events for updating the title, description, color, seconds, all of that stuff is basically just being proxied. So it doesn't actually know about my used model collection. It doesn't know about a Pomodoro model. It's just a very raw form, and that's kind of what I'm going after. And I want to try and follow that pattern as closely as I can. Essential links, we don't actually need that, so let's delete it. Let's run this Quasar server. Now, what else? We've also got the category card. Now, the category card, we can see that it does have knowledge of the model here. So that's one thing I want to try and avoid. Oh, however, this is okay because we're just sending through the data for the model. But this is the part that I want to avoid. Basically putting these, like removing, updating the form and all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if I can move that out of the category card and instead basically emit events and then have the parent basically perform all of these actions. And the reason I want to do that is because, first of all, it makes the component a bit more testable in larger applications. Honestly, I don't think I would usually do that with an application of this size, but I kind of want to do it as an experiment. And let's see if there's anybody watching. Not yet, but that's totally fine. It's probably good because I'm kind of floundering around at the start here. So let's give this a crack and see how it turns out. The first thing I need to do is basically try and extract all of this code out of here. So let's see if it's working in its current state. We'll close that out. Bring up the application there. And I just want to say up front, this video probably will be a little bit messy, but it's one of those videos where I'm going to show you my process for figuring out things, so it's not supposed to be perfect. Let's go to the login page, and let's see if I can log in. I can't even remember what my login details were now, so hopefully this will work. There we go, and it did. That's right, we had this section, we could click on the edit button, schoolwork. Let's change that to a 2. Okay, and that's all working. And the form is agnostic, but this section here is not. Let's change that to like a 5 and see if that works. Yeah, and it does. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is basically take out use model. That's the part I'm trying to extract to make this component more agnostic. So let's come down here to the part where we're at blur. And instead of doing an update there, basically we want to notify the parent that we want to update a Pomodoro category, and then we'll pass through the Pomodoro category ID so that it knows. And so let's come in here and say emit, and we want to emit update. Yeah, I guess update is fine there, and then we'll pass through the ID as well, which will be the categories ID. Now, where is that up here? We get the category pass through, so I should be able to just say category.id. So there we go. We're saying, telling the parent component, I want you to update the category with that ID. I don't care how you update it. That's the important part. I don't care how you update it. Just update it for me, please. All right, so this vModel section here, how's that going to work now? So that might be a little bit more difficult. We might have to say, instead of vModel, model dash value is equal to, instead of form.title, we can say category.title. And by the way, let's check if we've got update defined. Yeah, we've got it defined there. So let's save that. All right, so it's going to break some things because form and update are no longer being used, so we can get rid of those. Open up the console, and it looks like we don't have any errors, but updating should not work. Yeah, so let's change that to a 7, for example, and it didn't work, which is what we expected. So we're notifying the parent. I don't know why that's showing up, but it's not actually updating. So that's good. That's kind of what I want. Now, as for whether or not it's updating, we want that to be passed down. So we'll say here updating, and we'll set the type of that equal to a Boolean, and required, I guess we could set that to false. Maybe we should enforce it. No, I'm going to set it to false. And then we'll set the default there equal to false. There we go. So we should be able to get rid of this updating now. And we're just going to be using the updating prop instead. So let me Control D to say where that's used again. Yeah, so this loading spinner, it's going to be dictated by the parent instead. And 1 second, I just got a Discord. Ooh, from somewhere on the Quasar core team. All right, sorry, I've just checked because I thought it might be relevant to the stream, but it looks like it is not. All right, so what else can we get rid of here? Update category ID. I don't remember changing that. It looks like I did it in both those that one already had an update with the category ID. All right, that's fine. The other one we've got here is removing. So let's come up here and we will accept removing. Like this. And all the same settings there, and now we can get rid of removing. Now the next one is remove. So when you click on that button, we want to say omit, remove, and pass through the category.id. Ooh, goodness, there's some people screaming outside. I think it's some kids playing. All right, so that's no longer needed. Now, where is this ID being used? So then we've got this watch effect part here that was keeping that model, this use model in sync with the category. That is also no longer needed. So basically, we're making this component ridiculously simple. All it does is accept data down and let the parent know when an action has occurred on it. So we're making it extremely agnostic here. And so now we've got props, and props doesn't need to be set there now. We just go to find props, and we don't need any of this. So in this sense, it's really nice. It makes the component pretty much only care about the markdown. We don't really have any code in here. This is just saying how the component looks. And this is just doing basically some type checking on the category that was accepted in there. But honestly, you could probably even say here, you probably could even not type that, just in case the Pomodoro category is coming from something else. I don't know. We probably want to enforce it. I can think about that later. Prashant says, hi, this is Prashant from India. How are you? I'm doing really well. My volume's very low. Okay. Let's see what I can do about that. Right. I've just installed the latest version of OBS, so I haven't reset those properties. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to add a filter here that boosts my audio. We'll add some gain. Let's go with that. Test, test. Test 2, 3. Test 2, 3. Okay, that looks a bit better. I'm just looking at this levels. Hello! That's probably a bit too high. Hello! Hello! Alright, let's go with about there. That's probably a good level. And it also looks like it's only coming out of one ear. So let me just unmute the video to check if it is leveled properly. No! Alright, let's go with about... Oh, goodness, it's not. So I'm not getting mono audio for some reason. Bugger, I might have to stop this stream to fix this. Let's see. Advanced audio properties. Oh, goodness, I hate this stuff. And there's a way I can make it mono. Microphone. Alright. Test 2, 3. Hello. Test 2, 3. Hello. Okay, it looks like the filter isn't working as well as it should now. Test 2, 3. Hello. Alright, looks like I can go a bit higher. This is probably funny for all of you listening. Let's go to about 14. Hello. Test 2, 3. Hello. And about 14.6. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. Hello. All right. I think that should be right. I'm going to unmute it on my end for a second so I can listen to check if it actually worked there. And about 14.6. Testing right. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Okay. So let me know if the audio is sounding good on your end. It's sounding good on my end now. All right. Carrying on. I think this component is good now. It's agnostic. The Pomodoro category, once again, the same. It's agnostic. And you can tell it's agnostic because you've got virtually no logic in here. This is just saying what's passed through to it. This is just saying what gets sent up to it. And this is basically just a shortcut for handling the modeling of the data that gets passed down. So it handles this handles some of the, basically does the emits, and handles the props being passed down and then emitted to the parent. So there isn't really any logic in here, and that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so now that I'm waffling, let's actually come back here and have a look at what its next steps might be. I'm just going to start looking at where I can start plucking some of this stuff out. We've got the user dashboard. Looks like this card is... What would you call that? I guess you call that like a category list. Some people call it an index. Hello, test 1, 2, 3. Yeah, classic. So now one thing I try to do is always use the last word of the component. So I guess I call this the manage categories card. I reckon that's probably a good name for it. So let's create a new file in here called manage. We call them Pomodoro categories card.view. All right, so we'll throw in a template here. And I'm basically just going to grab all of this code and whack it in there. All right, there it is. So I'll cut that. And then we'll say here, manage Pomodoro categories card. There we go. So that should have been auto-imported. Yes, I love Vola. It's giving me that. Now, notice that it's importing it from source/components, whereas Quasar actually gives us a components alias. So we don't need that source part beforehand. So the reason I believe that happens is if we go to JSConfig, notice that source is at the top there. We can reorder this. So I'm going to grab all of these and put those above source. And that just means that when I get auto imports, it's going to notice the components before source, and therefore it'll be imported from the correct place. At least I'm pretty sure that works 90% of the time. So let's look at this. We got manage Pomodoro categories card. Let's get rid of that. And notice that it imported by source from default. Let's find it in here. Manage Pomodoro categories card. So that was auto imported again. Let's have a look up here. And there we go. It comes out of components now. So that's a cool little trick to know. Not that it really matters that much, but I do like to use the right aliases. Keeps my code looking beautiful. All right, so category card is going to have to be moved to this new component. So let's come over here. I already have that on my clipboard, so we'll paste everything in there. And now we have to basically do this copy paste job. So we'll import category card. This also has the searcher, so we'll paste that in there. Now I do want to keep this here, so we might just comment that out and that out for now, but ultimately that's going to be passed down to the Manage Pomodoro Categories card. What else? So this search functionality, we don't have ref there, so we want that to be imported. This is good. This is fundamentally going to change the way I write components in the future, I think. I really want to move away from using composables in cards that shouldn't have knowledge of those composables. Sometimes they will still have composables in them, but it's not going to be for model-related stuff. I want to really decouple it from my other logic. So that's going to come out of view. And at some point, I'd love to use Anthony Fu's auto importer so we don't have to do imports for this stuff that we do over and over again. But it doesn't matter enough for now. All right, so let's come down here and have a look at the data that we're going to need. We got this dialogue related stuff. Now showing the dialogue, should that belong in the card? I think it does belong in the card. What have I got on my clipboard? Yeah, I can get rid of that. So we'll probably put the dialogue in there. Hang on, let me think about this. Yeah, this is concerned with managing the card, and I believe that the dialogue does fall under managing the Pomodoro, so I will put the dialogue in there. What else? Well, I guess we'll just kind of go down this card and have a look at all of the logic that we need to kind of proxy now. So now this is being V-modeled on search. So that is correct. And I will make this in charge of actually doing the filtering. I think that makes sense to sit here. What else have we got? What else are we relying on? So this handles showing the dialogue. Now setting the category ID equal to null. That was coming out of here, the use model composable. So that is no longer a thing. So I believe that logic can probably be removed from there, but we'll think about that, how that's all going to work in a little bit. This is a little bit hard for me because this is a paradigm shift, but we'll get good at it. So indexing, this is whether or not it's indexing the cards. That will now be a prop. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll come up here. I like to do props around here. Define props. And then we've got indexing, required, false. That's going to be a Boolean. And let's set a default equal to false. That makes sense to me. Let's go find that and let's carry on. For category in categories. Now this is probably going to end up being its own component, but we won't split it out just yet. Will it? No, because category card is already its own component. So maybe this is actually fine. I think it is fine. All right, so category and categories. In other words, the categories need to be passed through. So let's come up here and we'll say, in fact, I'd say categories probably comes first in this list. No, pressing tab isn't working. Oh, this happens sometimes. Yeah, I don't know how I enabled that, but I accidentally did. All right, categories, required, true. You need to actually have those categories. Type is going to be an equal to an array. And I think that's it. So let's jump down now. Category and category. So that's now being passed down. Yes, we use the ID of that category. Update. Once again, that job is now sitting in the parent. But the job of showing the dialogue happens here. So I reckon this probably has the dialogue. Let's see, q-dialog. It does. So now we can move that inside of this component. Let's just see what it looks like. Pomodoro category. Yeah, okay. And I reckon we can probably turn this into its own component at some point as well. Make everything really nice and decoupled. All right, so this can probably sit... should I put it inside the card or outside it? You know what? It really doesn't matter. I'll put it inside because it means I don't have multiple root components. So ultimately, I'd love to see if I can extract this as well. This is Pomodoro category form. Pomo Doro category form. Do I want the form to sit in here as well? And then when we update, we notify the parent with the form. I don't know. Okay, let me think about this and what knowledge should belong there. So, should I be passing the parent down the form? Or should manage Pomodoro categories cut? Should it have the responsibility? Yeah, it should know. I think it should know the shape of what a form looks like. Should it, or should we pass the form down? So this is what I'm wrestling with right now. You can either pass the form components down from the dashboard, or you can pass them down at this level. If I pass them down at this level, I can't even finish that sentence. I need to make a decision soon. All right, I think I'll keep it here for now. But we'll just sort of like put a feather in our hat for that. All right, anyway, moving on. Now we can start culling some things. So we got if this is the difference between a create and an update. Right, so we need to know whether or not we're creating or updating. So let's change this to creating. And we'll change that to updating. And then we can have refs for both of those. So we'll say, oh, maybe we could set this to show create dialog. No, because there's only one dialog. So yeah, we should probably say here const creating and const updating is equal to a ref equal to false. Updating. Because no, that could be interpreted as a spinner. So how about this? Show creating form, and then also show updating form. Now, hang on. I wanted to make this truly agnostic. The problem with what I have right now is technically the parent now doesn't have the power to change whether or not the create or update form is showing. So for example, you might want to, at a dashboard level, show the creating form or show the updating form. But then maybe the way you do that is by exposing a function. In fact, yeah, I think that is how you would do that. You'd say, for example, define expose, and then you would expose a function that basically toggles show dialog correctly there. So let's come in here. We'll actually build those functions now. Function show create dialog, and then we'll have another one for show update dialog. There we go. So show create is going to say set the dialog equal to true. That's going to be the same with the update dialog. The difference being that this will, oh, we'll make sure I got the equal sign there. Create dialog is going to set creating, show creating form equal to true. And then this will say show updating form. Okay, I think that makes sense. So now when you click on the create button, where is it? Yeah, this is now going to say instead, show create dialog. Okay, I think that's right. Yeah, all right, so let's do the same thing for updating, and then this will be show update dialog. Okay, so let's come back down and see what we can get rid of. I think I saw some things before on my way down here. Looks like a creating. Yeah, so we got creating here. And this should actually be show create dialog. So you only show the create button if it's a create dialog. Oh, actually that's the wrong button. This is the one you click to actually create it. So this will actually emit the create event. So we'll say emit create, and then we'll probably have to send through a form as well, but I'll think about that in a moment. All right, and then this one is going to emit an update. And that update is going to send through, and by the way, this create, that can probably belong inside of this create button. So I'm probably actually going to remove that anyway. Ah, bugger. You know what? It's okay. You learn this stuff as you go along. So yeah, what I actually want to do is create a separate dialog for this create button. So where is it? It's this one here, I think. Yeah, so this is going to turn into its own component. We'll come in here and we'll create a new file called create Pomodoro category button. And I want to be clear that a lot of the stuff I'm doing here is overkill. This is an exercise for myself in basically figuring out really clean ways to decouple components. And this is especially good for applications that you want to scale, where you're reusing components a lot and they need to be really well tested. So it won't make sense for a project of this size where I'm just building a simple Pomodoro timer app. However, these are good practices to know about. And if you get to know these practices really well, then you get into the habit of building in this way. And it means that you can start using it on smaller projects as well, because it becomes the comfortable way for you to program. So anyway, let's come in here and then we can say, look, honestly, I can probably go full screen now. Ooh, that didn't work properly. What's going on here? Didn't really work. All right, there we go, full screen. We'll say template, and then we've got this create button. I don't want any of the styling because you might want to create it in a different context and in a different way. So icon, unelevated, color, dense, class. We want to get rid of all of that. And then I'll just come in here and say v-bind adders. We'll probably have to do that as well since I'm going to send props through. And then it's going to have its own dialog. So we can now change this to create Pomodoro category button, and that should be imported. Oh, it's using /. That should be fine. It's all right. Now, instead of having show dialog there, that's now going to be taken out, and we'll need a show dialog sitting inside of here. What else? The other thing I want to do is put the dialog itself inside of this component. So where is that dialog? Here we go. So we've basically got the same dialog there, but now this is specific to creating. So we don't need this if statement anymore. We know that it's just going to be for creating a Pomodoro category. And it emits create when it's ready. It needs to know whether or not it's creating. So let's come in here and say, how about this? Const creating is equal to a ref equal to false by default. No, what am I doing? That should be define props creating required false type boolean default false. All right, so we've got that being passed through. And yeah, I think I'm happy to leave that creating button with its styling intact. And you could go one step further, and I probably will at some point, to extract the dialog itself, the create dialog itself, because there might even be situations where you want to show the dialog but you don't want it to be basically coupled to this button here. You might want to show the dialog for a different reason. Once again, for small projects, this doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to figure out really good ways to create components in a way that scales really well for larger kind of enterprisey type applications. All right, so we got show dialog here. That sets it to true. This is being modeled. I don't know why it has a problem with that. Probably because ref isn't imported. Import ref, and that's coming out of view. Okay, now we need to import this Pomodoro category form. There it is. That should be imported. I love Vol. I love how it makes it red. That works really nicely. Oops, squeaky chair. And where are we at now? So now showing the create dialog is no longer necessary because it's the button's responsibility to do that. So we can get rid of that. Show creating form, no longer needed. This can be show update dialog, since that's only going to be an update dialog, and this simplifies drastically. And this is always what happens when you kind of pull things apart. Things get a whole lot simpler. It's really nice. So now we can come in here. What did I just copy then? Show update dialog. And this is going to model show update dialog. And now it's got its own form. You know what? Let's now pluck out the update dialog and turn it into its own component. All right, this is nice. This is exactly what we wanted. Show, no, what do we call this? We'll call this update Pomodoro category dialog. Hang on, is this overkill? Just thinking to myself now, is this... It's not really overkill because the main reason to extract this is to basically make everything easier to grok, and it's not that much extra work. So no, I don't think it is overkill for an enterprisey type application once again. So let's say update Pomodoro category dialog dot view. There we go. We'll now put in a default template for that. And now I can pull out this entire dialog. And so we'll cut it. And we'll whack it in there. Whoops. And then we'll come back here and we'll use it. Update Pomodoro category dialog. And if I was building this again, in hindsight, I would probably be doing... You know, it'd be much easier to sort of test things as we go here rather than having to do like one massive extraction. And honestly, I probably could do it that way anyway, like making sure that everything is always working. But since we're kind of fundamentally changing the way it all works, I guess that doesn't really work. Maybe it could, but yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's jump into update Pomodoro category dialog. It's now going to have its own version of the form. So we've got form.title. Yeah, so what we can now do, say, will we say form.title? Maybe just the title. We can remove form.everywhere here. Yeah, and we can use that vModel pattern that we had before, which is, I don't even know where that was now. So I now need to like restructure components. And, you know, in this situation, you wouldn't have just a Shelly components directory. You'd start organizing things by domain. But we can have a look at that later on. Basically, I think it was inside of the form. Yeah, this is the pattern that I want here. Use vModels. So update Pomodoro category dialog. Is now going to Yeah, basically just proxy those fields through to the form. Hang on, would you actually do that? No. Okay, you know what? I'm changing my mind. Let's change this back to a form. And now I can do this. I can say const form is equal to a ref, and it's going to have a title. And ideally, I would have a composable that allows me to create this form without having to use the entirety of use model. So you might have noticed in the previous stream, I was using use model that gave me access to a form that I could use directly. I would want to decouple that code. So in a situation like this, I could say, for example, use, or maybe like create model form, for example, and I could pass through the Pomodoro category, and then that would give me a form with all of my fields set up, right? But I don't currently have that functionality, so I'm going to have to do this from scratch. So this functionality like exists, but it exists in use model. So if I were to decouple that, then this would be possible. So I definitely need to think about decoupling that in the Supabase library. But anyway, let's make this a ref now. And it's going to have title, description, color, seconds. And by default, we can set title, description, color, and seconds. Title and description and color can be left like that. The seconds I might set to null by default. And now we need ref, so import ref, and that's coming from view. All right, so now we've got our form, and now when we omit to update this, I don't know why that's update, show create dialog, this should just be show dialog. In fact, we don't even need that if statement at all. This is for updating, so we don't need the create button at all. Loading is equal to updating, so we need to accept that by saying define props updating required true type boolean default false. Update, so this is going to omit an update event, and that's going to send through. This then is, of course, going to have to accept a Pomodoro category. Pomodoro category required true type Pomodoro category. So we'll go ahead and import that. This is coming from source models. We should have that models directory as an alias. So let's come in here and just create another alias for models and try this again. I don't know if that will have updated straight away. Let's just try it though. Category, and there we go. It's coming out of the models directory now, which is what we want. Make sure we get the comma in there. And this doesn't need a default, so that's correct. Now, this is an update form, so we should actually say Pomodoro category, the one that's passed through, dot title, so that it basically sets up the form. Same with description, color, and seconds. I think this is the correct way to do it. No, I thought this was going to happen. Oh, wait, this needs to be set to props. I still don't think this is going to work. I think the lint is going to complain about this. Oh, no, it seems to be fine with it. I thought it was going to tell me to use watch effect instead. Am I using the latest linter? Lint. Where is it? ESLint plugin view 8. Yeah, that is the latest one, to the best of my knowledge at least. All right, so we get the category, whether or not it's updating. And these should be set correctly on the form when it's first created. Maybe this should be a function, set form, and we call it straight away. And then we could say, for example, reset form. Yeah, let's do that. Function. How about set form to model? Let's go with that. And then I can basically set all of these to null by default and then update it. So I can replace the whole thing, can't I? Yeah, I can with a ref. So let's do that. And we'll say form.value is equal to that. And then we call that. And it means that we can reset this form because I get the feeling we might actually end up needing that functionality at some point. All right, so let's continue looking through here. Pomodoro category form needs to be imported. That's imported it. Nice. Now, v-model, yeah, that should be modeled. And then basically we can call an update, which is going to emit an update event, and it's going to give it the form so it knows how to update it. All right, let me stop and think for a second. Just check this all looks good. Now we need update to be sitting. Hang on. Should this be responsible for performing the update as well? If I do that, I've now coupled this component to the updating logic. And I might, for example, want to do something before I update the Pomodoro category. Once again, I'm thinking enterprisey type applications here, where, you know, all sorts of fancy stuff ends up happening and you really want to keep things decoupled. I don't know. I'm gonna ask some of the people in the Quasar community once I finish this what their opinion is about this and the best way to do it. But I'm thinking, I can't stop spinning around in my head thinking, am I going too far here? Like, for example, should this just be a normal queue dialog? Does it need to be its own component, or could I just have a normal queue dialog? But then, see, this component gives us all of that extra markdown as well. That's the benefit of it. We don't, like, it keeps the markdown separated. So yeah, I think it does belong in its own component. That's all right. It's good to keep questioning yourself with this kind of stuff. So what are we going to do next? So we call update. We emit that with the form. So now let's come in here and say define emit. Define, it's actually emit sir. And we will have to say const emit is equal to that. And this can just be an array. So we'll make it an array and just give it update. All right, I think that's right now. Tell it if it's updating, and so it would let the parent know. The parent would then give it the spinner. The spinner is then passed down so that it knows that it's loading. And then the Pomodoro category would update, and that would be passed down. So now this doesn't have any knowledge that it doesn't need to have, which is essentially what we want here. It's only concerned with the updating. All right. By the way, one of the reasons we do this is this doesn't have any state in it. Basically, the application doesn't need any state for us to test this component. So I don't need to spin up some fake state in order for this to work. I just pass through a Pomodoro category and then say when update is called, it should get an update event. And basically we can just test everything inside of this works in isolation from the rest of our application. So this is kind of contrived what I'm doing here because I'm not doing like test-driven development or anything like that. But I want to get the concepts down, which is why we're doing this. All right, so we've got the update Pomodoro category dialog. I think I am actually happy with that now. And let's go from the top down. I'm just going to close. Oh, goodness, this is a bit of a mess, isn't it? I'm probably going to do all this from scratch, so I might just delete it all. Yeah, we can get rid of all of that. It's pretty easy to redo anyway. We got use model collection as well, which is indexing the categories. It looks like that is currently being used, so I'll save that and leave that. Pomodoro categories card. Now, one thing I was just thinking before actually is maybe we could... Oh, this isn't working. Of course, we're going to have errors. So maybe we could decouple the toolbar from the rest of the card. In fact, maybe this entire card could be built from scratch and then pass through into a card. So maybe we don't even need a card component. We just have a toolbar. Yeah, see, if we did that, we'd have like more flexibility because we can decide on what the toolbar looks like depending on the scenario. I don't know. I'll put a feather in that hat, in my hat for that one as well. So let's get even more organized here. We'll create a new folder here called Pomodoro category. We'll call this or maybe just a Pomodoro category folder, and another one here called manage Pomodoro categories list. It was actually a card, wasn't it? It wasn't a list. Card. And now what I'm going to do is take that card and throw it inside of there. Yep, let's hope that all the refactoring is going to work out. Unfortunately, you have to like save them all manually. It's a stupid thing with VS Code. Actually, no. That can just sit inside of the root. Because these wouldn't actually sit in a folder for that now, would they? Save it. Yeah, this category button, that might not necessarily be inside of the managed categories, which is why they kind of need to be in their own separate place. Pomodoro category form. Okay. Update Pomodoro category dialog. Really, we've just thrown everything into that same directory there, so it doesn't really help that much. But it means that we can say, okay, let's look at our components related to a Pomodoro category, and there they all are. One thing I do like to do, I might actually turn this into views, and I'll get some feedback on other people about this, but we might have a views directory, and I would consider this card to be a view. Let's save that. And the reason I like to do that is because it basically tells me that these are more raw components. Actually, would I call that a view? I don't know. This is what you get in these streams. A lot of Luke scratching his head and thinking, what's the best way to organize this? Button form. I mean, you could have like an update and a create directory. Or you could organize it by the component type, like cards. So Pomodoro cards. I don't know. You know what? Let's leave them separated for now, and we'll see what happens. Like, because often as you keep coding, the right structure tends to jump out at you. So we'll leave it like this for now. And I'm worried about overcomplicating my structure here, which can actually cause more problems with scalability in the future, at least in my experience. Now, I guess the next thing to do is start sticky taping all of this back together again. So let's go to the Manage Pomodoro Categories card. We're not using that form anymore. We don't need that update dialog anymore. Or do we? No, we don't, because it sits within... Oh no, there it is there. So I think what we really have to do here is basically model it on there. And then make sure that that modeling is being proxied through. Emit, so we'll say here, update model value. And then we need to use that V model thing. What's it called again? Anthony Foos. V model, use V model. Yeah, I guess that is what it would be. And then you pass through your props. And then of course we're going to need the value sent through here. So model value required true type Boolean. I guess that's technically not required, because there are ways you can show and hide a dialog without actually putting a model on there. And then we can say here we've got props, and the second one is the thing, the key of that prop, which is going to be model-value. And is that it? Is there anything else? Use model value, use vModel, you get the props, the key, and then emit. Of course we need emit as well. Alright, so that should work. And so everything in here should only be concerned with display. Now the updating of this input, that's another one. Oh no, this is the search. So the, you know what, we might actually comment this a little bit nicer now. So search / filter, and we'll just say search. And then we'll call this create button. These comments actually do help me to find stuff. I know some people might find it redundant, but I find it helpful. And then what is this section here? I guess you would call this the categories, category cards. And then we can say here update dialog. Alright, so saving that. What next? Is the server going to compile now? No, we've got a few things that we need to fix up first. Weird, some of those compilation errors don't really make sense. Have I got it set to auto open? Because I hate that. Dev server open false. No. Okay, so that's good. So we should be reaching a point soon where this is going to build successfully. Let's see if I get any red squigglies in any of these components. No. Alright, user dashboard has got them though. Let's just get rid of everything that is red. Use model, which we will probably end up needing again, but we'll leave it like that for now. And there we go. We got green. So let's close this out. refresh the page and see what we get. Alright, I definitely did not expect everything to just work by default. So I'm going to do the old comment everything out and then slowly bring things back in one at a time. So first of all, Manage Pomodoro Categories card is going to need the categories, and it doesn't need whether or not it's indexing, but we'll pass that through anyway. There we go, and make sure that it does actually index. So notice that all of the logic has been pushed all the way up to the dashboard now. That's what we ultimately want, especially fetching stuff. I always want to push fetching as high as I can because it makes it easy to basically say, fetch all the data that I need in one request. Or even if you have to do it in multiple requests, it's usually easier to sort of do it further up the line. It ends up having other benefits, like often you need to show loading spinners further up the line and stuff like that. But anyway, we got indexing, and then we got the categories. So let's come down here, pass through the categories. Did I just get auto completion for that? Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Quasar team. Especially, I think that was Yusuf and Callow have given us that amazing TypeScript support there. And that's not just TypeScript. That's basically, yeah, allowing everything to flow through. So that's the Volar team as well. It makes all of that possible. Oh, hang on. I want to see if it worked for that as well. Indexing. Wow. Very cool. What was that indexing categories, though? I don't know what that was all about. Notice that it said, yeah, index categories. I don't know what that's all about. Oh, don't have the comma in there. All right, there we go. So that should be getting passed down. And we want to comment out virtually everything. By the way, this filtering isn't going to work, is it? So let's have another one here called filtered categories, which is equal to computed. This is going to have to be const. And then we can return here. Make that props dot categories. Love that auto completion. Dot filter. Take the current category. Category dot title dot includes. So we want to make sure that that includes whatever search.value is equal to. That's getting a bit long for me. I think I actually would put that in a new line. I know everybody gets obsessed with putting things in one line. I'm not in that camp. I'm in the camp of put things on multiple lines and read down. Even though it's like a little bit of extra syntax, I actually find this easier to read when everything's on one line, rather than putting everything on one line. But hey, do what you like. I put a tweet out about this, and it was a little bit controversial. Hello, good morning from Bolivia again. Awesome. It's so freaking cool that we can stream, and I can have people from Bolivia saying hello in the morning when it's nighttime over here at 7:30. Over in Queensland, where I am right now. Alright, so that should filter the categories now. Next, I basically just want to simplify things big time by commenting everything out, and then we'll slowly bring it back in. And let's actually do this by component. So we've got categories cards. That's kind of one component there. Whoops. Don't want to delete it. And then this is all the create section. We'll do that next. And then the update dialog. All right, jumping out of full screen. Oh no, I just jumped into full screen. Throwing that on that side. And we're going to get some problems, of course, because now that I've commented things out, just wondering where they've gone. So I have to get rid of that as well. Oh man, you know what? I might just disable the unused refs for now. It's kind of making it hard. doing? Comment that out again. That's what I want. Okay. So what is it? It's no unused vars. And we can come into ESLint.js and let's set no unused vars equal to off. And I think I'm going to have to restart my server again now that I've done that. And it's now letting me, the editor isn't squawking at me anymore, so that's good. Just one more second. All right, I think we're almost there. This is exciting. And it's funny because everything was just functional and it's taken me, I don't know, however long this stream has been going for to do this refactor, but I think it is a really important refactor. And I'm trying to figure out, push myself with these concepts of basically decoupling things. All right, so we've got this create button. Nice. We can now start digging into these errors. Property form is access during rendering, but it's not defined in the instance. Do we have form on here? No, that error is probably related to create Pomodoro category button. All right, so that's what's going on here with the form.title for, yeah, and I think we did decide that we wanted to put the form on here, as long as it's not concerned with actually using that form to create the Pomodoro. So now what I'll do is I'll say const form is equal to a ref having these settings. And by default, I'm going to set them all equal to null. Add a comma in there. Oh, I said from. Should be form. Save it. Let's see if that's loading, and it is. So let's refresh the page, have another crack at this, and see if we get any new errors. All right, the form's showing up. Title expression true to the value null. We've got null. All right, so it looks like by default it does want this to be a string, which is totally reasonable. I wonder if it'll let seconds be null though. Let's have another crack at this. All right, what do we got now? So it does want a number. I guess, you know what, it'd be good to have a default here anyway, come to think of it. So maybe like, I don't know, what's 1 minute in seconds? No, wait, not 1 minute. What am I saying? That's obvious. I want 20 minutes in seconds. 20 minutes in seconds, which is going to be 20 times 60. There it is there. Save that. Let's have another crack at this. See if we get no errors. And there we go. So now we've got this dialog. And the cool thing is, if I want to come in and edit this dialog now, there's a really nice, clean place for me to do it. So that is good. Let's check if everything can type in. Yes, it can. And that all works. This probably shouldn't work. Good, it doesn't. What's it trying to do? You know what, let's just dig into the code rather than the error. It's probably going to jump out at us and be obvious once we look at it. So we're looking at the, we're already in the create category button. So this says emit create. Do we have the create? No, we haven't defined that. So we have to say define emit, which is going to be an array. You need to be able to emit create. And we also want to send the form to say, hey, I want you to create this. There we go. So notifies the parent. And next, within manage Pomodoro categories card, I think I basically want to proxy that emit. So I don't want the creation of it to be up to this component. I think that would be a mistake. So if I made it up to the card component to create the category, let's just say I wanted a category to be created, but in a specific context. So you wanted to say this is a category for a specific project. Then you probably want that creation to happen one step further up the chain in the dashboard. so that the setting of the project can happen there. Otherwise, you have to send a prop down to the category with the project ID, which is one way you can do it, but I think it kind of breaks what we're trying to do here by always sending things up the chain as far as we can go, and then having that thing, for example, created, and then just sending the data down the chain. And to the best of my knowledge, this doesn't really slow things down, proxying, for example, in this case, an emits. It's not like we're going to end up with this crazy performance impact because we're calling an emit twice. All right, anyway, coming back here, define emits. We emit create with the form. And so that's going to happen here. So now I can say at create, I want to do an emit of create, and it's going to take a form. So when this is when the create is called, it takes in a form, and then we'll emit form. So we're basically proxying that emit up the chain. And now we need to have a define emit here. Define emits create. So I think that should work. I think I should not get any errors. However, nothing should happen. That's what I would expect. All right, I am getting an error. Let's dig in here. Okay. Context.emit is not a function. I reckon it's because I didn't expose emit. Yeah, I didn't. So here, I have to say emit. And here, I have to say emit. Because I'm calling emit, but emit wasn't basically defined. So you can kind of call it whatever you want. So you can say like emit events if you really wanted to. But I'll use emit because I'm pretty sure that's the standard. So we'll do another refresh here. There we go. Now the last thing to test is basically the final abstraction here. This is where we would actually do the create on the user dashboard component. Though ultimately, I'd probably go one step further still and create a view. So the user dashboard would have a view, I don't know what I would call it yet, and it would be in charge of basically handling the create. But we can do all of that here for now. That's totally fine. So let's say here at create is equal to, I guess you'd say, on create. Let's go with that. And I should be able to say function on create. I believe I'm doing this right. The later it gets at night, the more syntax starts to sort of like fall out of my head. And there we go. It works. How cool is that? So now everything is beautifully decoupled, and this create button has zero knowledge of how the thing is created. It doesn't care. It just sends the form up the chain until we hit the dashboard. I'm really, really happy with that. And by the way, ultimately, even all of this code here, I would then put in its own composable. And it's really nice coding in this way because you end up with templates that are just that. They're just templates. And you basically just pull logic out. So you'd have a composable here. You just pull the logic out of the composable, and you just whack it into the template wherever it needs to go. Really, really nice way to develop. And one of the reasons that I love the composition API. All right, so create is working. I'm super, super happy with that. Next, we go to the category card. So let's uncomment that out and see what we've got here. The category card is going to have an at update event. That's not going to have a show dialog anymore because we don't actually have a show dialog here. What we do want to do is we want to take the ID and say emit update, and we're going to send through. I don't know if you can you use multiple parameters with emit. I actually can't remember. I think you might have to send an array. Oh, let's find out. So let's try sending up the ID, and of course we'll want a form as well. So hey, this is the thing that I want you to update, the thing with that ID, and then there's the form of the new values to update it with. Okay, so jumping into the category card. Let's come down here. Where is the update? Did we... I'm having a bit of a thought here. The update button on that category card should probably be a slot. Yeah. See, that would be really smart. All right, I might actually have it take a break and do that later. Oh, I see. So what I was doing here is saying, hey, you clicked on the update button, therefore open this dialog. You know what I think would be smarter? Is if we said, this is a category card, it's got a bottom right slot, and then we put that button into the bottom right slot, and same with the delete button. And that means that in the future, if you wanted to have different icons there, if you wanted to remove the icons completely, I don't know actually, I'm on the fence about this. Okay, I'm gonna take a break and have a think on how I want to structure this, because I want to come up with I guess I want to come up with conclusions at the end of building this little component section of how I want to build things in the future for large scale applications. So I'd rather take the time to really think them through. So category card, it should only be concerned with the display. And if it's only concerned with the display, but there's still two ways you could do it. I guess you could have that as a slot, but by default, it shows the pen. Yeah, I reckon that would be better. Where you make it, if you did want to change it, then you would turn that into a slot and it shows the pen for updating it by default. Like, I'll give you an example. Let's just say you've got another user in your application, and you can view somebody else's categories, but you can't delete them or update them. In that case, you probably want to reuse this component, but you don't want to have that edit button there, and you don't want to have that delete button there. Or you might want to show something else instead. Yeah, in which case a slot would be nice. Okay, anyway, so let's just do what we got here for now. Update Pomodoro category dialog. What does that take in? It actually needs the Pomodoro category itself. So how would we do that? This would send... How would we get the Pomodoro category? I guess... Alright, maybe this needs to be sent further up the chain, because this has actually got no way of getting the Pomodoro category that needs to be updated. And you could put that on this component, but now I would argue if I did that, this component has too much knowledge of... Yeah, okay, I need to take a break. Thank you everybody for watching. This has been a little bit of a crazy one. Lots and lots of refactoring type stuff and lots of thinking about how to solve these problems. But yeah, thanks to those of you who stuck around for coming along with me on this journey. And I'll work on it a little bit later, I reckon. Maybe tonight.